Everybody, welcome to the Happier Attorney, the channel where we talk about flat fees for attorneys and mindset and all of the things so that you as an attorney can be a happier person. And today we are going to be talking about boundaries. And boundaries are critical in life and critical when you have clients. And they are absolutely critical with flat fees. And many of us have some real issues with boundaries. And I remember years ago, I didn't even know what a boundary was. It was bad. So this video is going to be talking about how you can recognize what healthy boundaries are and what they're not, and how you can enact boundaries, protect those boundaries, as well as recognize when you're violating somebody else's boundaries. I know, okay? So what is a boundary? A boundary is what behavior is okay and what behavior isn't. That is your business, okay? That affects you directly, all right? It's not okay to violate somebody else's boundaries, all right? It's not okay to be getting in other people's business that you have no business getting in their business, all right? So, and sometimes it's not clear where those lines are, okay? So what are some common boundary issues, especially for attorneys? Well, we have clients. Sometimes clients are, pushing back on price. Many times that's a boundary issue. They're not doing what we tell them to do. They're being rude to staff, maybe, not paying us, telling us how to do our jobs. Those are boundary issues. That's not okay. They're getting in my business. They're trying to tell me how to do my job. That's not okay. They're pushing back on price. They're not respecting what my price is. That's not okay. Here's the deal. When you are charging by the hour, it can be tempting to have less boundaries with clients. After all, okay, so they're pushing, they're doing this. Okay, well, I'm still billing them. I just made an extra, $50. Okay. Be careful about that. Boundaries are critical with clients, regardless of how you're charging. You're the expert. This is your practice. Even if you're working for somebody else, you're the expert. You're the one who has the knowledge. You have to be in charge. You have to be the boss. Yes, they get to make, decisions on settlement. But you have to be the boss in how this goes down and what you will and won't do. Otherwise, you have, the 5-year-old in charge of the school. Nothing good's going to come from that. Nothing's good going to come from that for them or you, okay? Sometimes we have boundary issues with employees. They're not following the rules, they're not showing up on time, they're not getting their work done, they're not dressing appropriately, whatever. Those are boundary issues. That's, again, is that behavior okay? Well, it's not, Is it okay or not? Others close to us, friends, spouses, family members, maybe they're not contributing equitably, or they're lying to us, maybe taking advantage of us, getting in our business, continuing to maybe behave in a way that we've told them is not okay. Sometimes down to just bad behavior. Those are all boundary violations. And you know it when you feel it. You know it when you feel it. Again, this is any behavior that's just not okay. That, again, is your business. So we're not looking at, somebody else's marriage and going, that's not okay. Okay, that's, absent violence or, something that most of the time that's not your business. Okay? We're not being Karens. So, why, no offense to Karens out there, I hope you know what I'm talking about. So, why do we let other people violate our boundaries? Well, here are some of the common ones. And this can be pretty deep, okay? This is a YouTube video. All right? So, don't expect your boundary issues to be solved by watching a YouTube video, okay? But hopefully this will get you to at least start thinking. We do this for a variety of reasons, and they can be deep. They can be really deep. But we want people to like us, or at least not dislike us. We don't want conflict or a chance of conflict. It's easier. It's easier just to go along. It's easier just to not make waves. And ignore it. It's easier just to like whatever when somebody violates a boundary at the holidays. Holidays are a big one. It's just it's not that big of a deal. Okay? It's at least worth doing the exercise. Is that true? Then why are we talking about it? If it's not a big deal, why are you bringing it up? Okay, even in your own head. And, is it going to just further that behavior? Are you never going to see that person really ever again? Okay, maybe it's not worth it. I don't know. But if it's only going to keep happening, so be careful of lying to yourself. Sometimes, we don't want to be the difficult one. We don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. We feel responsible for somebody else's feelings. We tell ourselves it's, one-time thing. It's not that big of a fuss. We don't want to offend people or make them mad. Maybe we don't feel safe in the relationship to establish boundaries or to protect them. Maybe we don't feel safe and because we're not. Maybe it's a physical thing. Maybe you're in a relationship where you're physically not going to be safe if you establish a boundary. Maybe you're not going to be emotionally safe. Maybe the relationship itself will implode. And there's a part of you that knows that. Which, as someone who has been in a few of those relationships, guess what? I was right. And at the time, years ago, I wasn't ready to let go of that relationship. And I knew if I really established a boundary and kept it, it's probably the end of the friendship. Which means I shouldn't have been in the first place, quite frankly. And when I did get to the point where, yeah, that's not okay, we're not doing that anymore, guess what? Those relationships ended and ended real fast, which only proved I was right and only proved the need to have those boundaries in the first place. If your relationship itself is dependent on someone violating your boundaries and doing things that are not okay, what kind of relationship is that? Not one I will ever be in, ever again. Sometimes we are involved in a relationship with a narcissist. And they are good. They are really, really good. We've been gaslighted, love bombed. Sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what's going on here. But you know it instinctively. And every once in a while you get a whiff of, that didn't feel right. That didn't smell right. Wait a minute. That's not right. Pay attention to that. In my experience, nothing, and I've been involved with narcissists. Nothing good comes from it. You're not going to outsmart them. You're not going to win an argument with them. You're not going to get them to see your side of things. And there's a continuum of narcissism, of course. I always tended to give them the benefit of the doubt and, they're just this hurting person. And if I could just get below all of this crap, there's this really good person underneath there. Maybe, maybe not, but it's not my job to get under the crap anymore. Well, it never was my job. And then sometimes there's not this great person underneath there. Okay? So when we're talking about boundaries, I saw this. I can't take credit for it. I don't know where I saw it, but it was great. What is a boundary? B, write out boundary and then write down. B, be aware. O, of what is. U, unacceptable. And N, normalize saying no. D, do what is best for you. A, and know that it's not your. R, responsibility to sacrifice. Y, yourself for others. Be aware of what is unacceptable and normalize saying no. Do what is best for you and know that it is not your responsibility to sacrifice yourself for others. Easier said than done. I understand that. Dr. Brene Brown has some good information on boundaries. And I agree that with her that boundaries are being clear with people on what is and is not okay. Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. Clear is hard. It's a lot easier to be wishy-washy. It's a lot easier to let things go. But boundaries are absolutely necessary to have an authentic relationship with someone. And again, if you feel like you can't have an authentic relationship with somebody, what does that say about that relationship? Okay? What does that say about that relationship? And as someone who has had a real problem with boundaries in the past, it is very hard to set boundaries, but when you start doing it, it's incredibly liberating. Because what happens when we don't have boundaries and we say yes when we want to say no, when we say that's okay, implicitly or explicitly, when it's not, what happens is we violate our own trust. We didn't have our own back. And you're putting somebody else's comfort above your own. And we get resentful. Sorry, we get resentful. It is a very toxic, we're creating a very toxic mess for ourselves. And make no mistake, there is a cost. You will lose when you start establishing boundaries and holding firm, you will lose people. And that hurts. Because some of these people are close. Some of these people are our parents, a spouse, best friend, family member. It can feel like you're cutting your own throat. And you might lose other people connected to them. There's a cost. The cost on the other side is your self-respect. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. I either keep my self-respect and let that person go and some of the people attached to them, or I keep the status quo. And I keep lying to myself and telling myself it's not that big of a deal. I can handle it. It was just a dig here. It was just a comment here. It wasn't that big of a deal that they showed up at my house unannounced, even though I've told them not to. It's not that big of a deal that, this person did this or that. Are you lying to yourself? And the flip side of establishing boundaries is making sure that you're not violating other people's boundaries. A lot of times they go hand in hand. I know myself when I had a problem establishing boundaries with people, I look back at some behavior that makes me cringe because I was absolutely violating other people's boundaries. I was acting before I asked. I was getting in other people's business that I had no business getting in their business. I was pushing my way through. That's not okay. That wasn't okay. So if you know you have an issue with establishing boundaries, you might want to do some self reflection to see if you're violating other people's boundaries. And that can be hard to tell. Okay. So this isn't easy work. If you are wanting to improve your relationship with yourself, it's absolutely necessary work. It does not come for free. And again, especially if you have narcissists in your life, depending on where they are on the spectrum, you're not going to be able to have your cake and eat it too. You're not going to be able to curb the behavior, address the behavior, and keep them in your life. My experience. It just doesn't happen. I would hope that this is a journey, this is a progression, okay? That you get to the point where you trust yourself enough and nobody gets to talk to me like that. Nobody gets to treat me like that. Nobody gets to violate a boundary like that. That's not okay. All right. So, some of the things to ask yourself, what are you tired of? What is not okay in any particular relationship? It might be a small thing. Okay, it's not okay that you're late on a continual basis. That's not okay. Two big things. Ask yourself, what is the resistance to setting the boundary? Really? I'm afraid that, they'll quit. Or I'm afraid, that person won't like me. Whatever. What is it truly about? And what would be bad about setting the boundary? What's the cost? Okay. What are you supposed to be learning from this experience? And what would you do if you didn't have fear? Okay. And is what you're doing being living authentically, truly authentically, and having your own back? Okay. It's a process. You're not going to get it right all the time, but the more that you practice and the more you start being conscious of what is okay with you and what is not, and speaking up, and you don't have to be a jerk about it. You don't have to make this into World War III. You can politely and directly say, hey, can you not? I need you to call before you come to the house. I've planned this meal and I need you to be on time. It's not okay that we made these plans and you didn't show up. That can't happen in the future, or we won't be making plans. You can't control somebody else's behavior. You can control whether you're exposing yourself to it or not. You don't have to threaten the whole relationship. Sometimes you might need to, okay? But, try with subtler, okay? But what is okay and what is not, and deal with it. I can guarantee you will respect yourself more at the end of the day, even though it's more difficult. Even though it might feel like, oh, I hurt their feelings or I upset them. Okay. Just try it. Okay, but boundaries, they're a good thing. Okay, and then watch your own. Take care, you guys.